Once upon a time, there was a spring who lived happily and safely inside a pen. Although he heard many noises coming from outside, he lived believing that outside his world, inside the pen, there was nothing good. Even just to think about leaving his pen made him so scared that he was quite content to spend his life compacting and stretching himself again and again inside that tiny space. However, one day, the ink ran out, and when the pen's owner was busy changing it, there was an accident. The spring was flung through the air and landed in the toilet drain, well out of sight. Terrified, and cursing his bad luck, the spring was flushed through pipe after pipe, each time thinking it might be his end. During the journey, he did not dare open his eyes out of pure fear. Nor did he ever stop crying. Swept away by the water, he traveled on and on and on, until he ended up in a river. When the river current lost its force, and the spring could see that things had calmed down a bit, he stopped crying and listened all around him. Hearing birdsong and wind in the trees, he felt encouraged to finally open his eyes. What the spring saw was the pure, crystal waters of the river, the rich green rocks of the riverbed, and all kinds of fish of many colors, whose skins seemed to dance under the sunlight. Now he understood that the world was much greater than the space inside the pen, and that there had always been many things outside, waiting to be enjoyed. After spending a while playing with the fish, he went over to the riverbank, and then moved on to a field of flowers. There he heard weeping. He followed the sound, which took him to a lovely flower that had been flattened by a rabbit, and could no longer stand up straight. The spring realized that he could help the flower, so he offered to be his support. The flower accepted, and slept through the middle of the spring. There they lived happily together. And they would always laugh when remembering how the spring used to think that all there was to life was being a sad and fearful spring.
This summer was a real treat. I went to Spain with my family, and from the moment we landed, it felt like a dream. We spent our days on beautiful beaches, collecting seashells, swimming in the clear blue water, and soaking up the sun. We also explored local markets and tried delicious Spanish food like paella and churros. Yum! One day, we visited a small village with cobblestone streets and colorful houses. I even made some new friends who taught me a few words in Spanish. Every evening, we watched the sunset together, and I felt really grateful for the moments we shared. Vacations like this are priceless, and I will remember it for years to come.
Yesterday I turned 70. I have been driving without any accidents for as long as I can remember. I always drove by car, even short distances, and I cannot imagine living without a vehicle. The reason I have never had an accident is that I always drive very carefully. This morning, there was a roadblock and the police examined every vehicle. They asked me to step out of the car. The officer told me I cannot drive a car anymore because it appeared that I never had a driver's license to begin with. My name is Miriam and I have many hobbies. The reason is simple, I just have many different interests. As a kid I had a large doll collection, but now my likes have changed. Nowadays I am very much interested in art. I like to paint and I am especially fond of reading books. I read all kinds of non-fiction books, even history. I also like to play the piano. Music is one of my favorite pastimes. Being involved with many hobbies is a tradition in our family. My sister likes to read books about philosophy and everyone in my family participates in cultural activities. Besides reading and music, I also like to play tennis and on special occasions, such as on vacation, I like to play golf. My parents are much more into animal breeding. My father is an expert with dogs and exotic animals. If time allows, I love to travel. However, I consider myself more of an explorer than a typical tourist. Having many hobbies and doing a lot of sports keeps my mind and body active, and helps me to look forward in life as well.
We have a nice house. It has 3 bedrooms. It has 3 bathrooms. It is a 1-story house. It doesn't have any stairs. It doesn't have a second floor. It doesn't have a basement. It does have an attic. It has a chimney and a fireplace. It has a kitchen. It has a dining room. It has a living room. The living room has a big sofa and a big TV. Our living room is our family room. We watch TV together. We play games together. We play games like Scrabble and Monopoly. We enjoy those games. They are fun to play. We have a small front yard. We have a big backyard. We don't have a swimming pool. We don't have a garden. We have a 2-car garage. My mom has a blue Cadillac. My dad has a red Honda. I have a bicycle and a skateboard. My sister does too. She's a good skateboarder, for a girl. We live on a quiet street. We never hear police sirens or fire sirens. I go to a nice school. Someday I will get married. I will own a nice house on a quiet street. And I will have a swimming pool in the backyard.
I have been friends with Rachel since high school. Now 5 years later, we are still in regular contact even though we live in different cities. When it comes to important things in life, we are always supporting each other. We both still have plans to continue at a specific university. This will be a perfect way to support each other again. My strong sides have always been mathematics and physics, while my friend prefers languages and the arts. Somehow, I always know what she doesn't and the other way around. At times we even support each other when we are anxious or upset. I had to calm her down a couple of times, especially when she had trouble with her boyfriend. The bottom line is that we have an indestructible friendship which I hope will survive anything.
Julian was a well-read, highly educated and accomplished pianist and composer. He had spent many years of practicing music to become a true master. He seemed to have everything one can dream of: talent, intellect, and wealth. The only thing he wished for was to meet his true love. The new season had just started and members of the orchestra gathered for the first time after the summer break. It was during the rehearsal that Julian met Sia, a young musician who was invited to join the orchestra as a violinist. As their eyes met directly for the first time, they immediately fell in love with each other. They started dating and would spend a lot of time together, playing the piano, talking about music, literature, and the infinite cultural events, which their city was famous for. They lived in Vienna and both loved it a lot, inspired by its numerous historic places, museums and sites. They enjoyed short round trips of the old city in the traditional horse-drawn carriage. Their relationship was a bed of roses and Julian decided to propose to Sia. He bought a beautiful engagement ring and was planning to ask her to marry him. He also composed a love song without words for Sia. On that day Sia looked gorgeous, he couldn't take his eyes off her. He started playing the song he had composed for her. Hardly had he touched the piano keyboards, when she took her violin and produced the finest melody. Never had Julian heard such beautiful music before. To his surprise, Sia had composed a special love song for him too. Their romance was as delightful as their music. When Julian proposed to Sia, she didn't hesitate to answer, "I couldn't wish for a better husband."
A son and his father were walking on the mountains. Suddenly, his son falls, hurts himself and screams, "Ayahu!" To his surprise, he hears the voice repeating, somewhere in the mountain, "Ayahu!" Curious, he yells, "Who are you?" He receives the answer, "Who are you?" And then he screams to the mountain, "I admire you." The voice answers, "I admire you." Angered at the response, he screams, "Coward." He receives the answer, "Coward." He looks to his father and asks, "What's going on?" The father smiles and says, "My son, pay attention." Again the man screams, "You are a champion." The voice answers, "You are a champion." The boy is surprised, but does not understand. Then the father explains, "People call this echo, but really this is life. It gives you back everything you say or do. Our life is simply a reflection of our actions. If you want more love in the world, create more love in your heart. If you want more competence in your team, improve your competence. This relationship applies to everything, in all aspects of life. Life will give you back everything you have given to it. Your life is not a coincidence. It's a reflection of you.
A son and his father were walking on the mountains. Suddenly, his son falls, hurts himself and screams, "Ah, ah." To his surprise, he hears the voice repeating, somewhere in the mountain, "Ah, ah." Curious, he yells, "Who are you?" He receives the answer, "Who are you?" And then he screams to the mountain, "I admire you." The voice answers, "I admire you." Angered at the response, he screams, "Coward." He receives the answer, "Coward." He looks to his father and asks, "What's going on?" The father smiles and says, "My son, pay attention." Again the man screams, "You are a champion." The voice answers, "You are a champion." The boy is surprised, but does not understand. Then the father explains, "People call this echo, but really this is life. It gives you back everything you say or do. Our life is simply a reflection of our actions. If you want more love in the world, create more love in your heart. If you want more competence in your team, improve your competence. This relationship applies to everything, in all aspects of life. Life will give you back everything you have given to it. Your life is not a coincidence. It's a reflection of you."
A man stopped at a flower shop to order some flowers to be wired to his mother, who lived 200 miles away. As he got out of his car, he noticed a young girl sitting on the curb sobbing. He asked her what was wrong, and she replied, "I wanted to buy a red rose for my mother, but I only have 75 cents, and a rose costs $2. The man smiled and said, "Come on in with me. I'll buy you a rose." He bought the little girl her rose and ordered his own mother's flowers. As they were leaving, he offered the girl a ride home. She said, "Yes, please. You can take me to my mother." She directed him to a cemetery, where she placed the rose on a freshly dug grave. The man returned to the flower shop, canceled the wire order, picked up a bouquet, and drove the 200 miles to his mother's house.
A few years ago, at the Seattle Special Olympics, 9 contestants, all physically or mentally disabled, assembled at the starting line for the 100-yard dash. At the gun, they all started out, not exactly in a dash, but with a relish to run the race to the finish and win. All, that is, except one little boy who stumbled on the asphalt, tumbled over a couple of times, and began to cry. The other 8 heard the boy cry. They slowed down and looked back. Then they all turned around and went back. Every one of them. One girl with Down syndrome bent down and kissed him and said, "This will make it better." Then all 9 linked arms and walked together to the finish line. Everyone in the stadium stood, and the cheering went on for several minutes. People who were there are still telling the story. Why? Because deep down we know this one thing: what matters in this life is more than winning for ourselves. What matters in this life is helping others win, even if it means slowing down and changing our course. It was a bitter, cold evening. The old man's beard was glazed by winter's frost while he waited for a ride across the river. The wait seemed endless. His body became numb and stiff from the frigid north wind. He heard the faint, steady rhythm of approaching hooves galloping along the frozen path. Anxiously, he watched as several horsemen rounded the bend. He let the first one pass by without an effort to get his attention. Then another passed by, and another. Finally, the last rider neared the spot where the old man sat like his now statue. As this one drew near, the old man caught the rider's eye and said, "Sir, would you mind giving an old man a ride to the other side? There doesn't appear to be a passageway by foot." Reining his horse, the rider replied, "Sure thing. Hop aboard." Seeing the old man was unable to lift his half-frozen body from the ground, the horseman dismounted and helped the old man onto the horse. The horseman took the old man not just across the river, but to his destination, which was just a few miles away. As they neared the tiny but cozy cottage, the horseman's curiosity caused him to inquire, "Sir, I noticed that you let several other riders pass by without making an effort to secure a ride. Then I came up and you immediately asked me for a ride. I'm curious why, on such a bitter winter night, you would wait and ask the last rider. What if I had refused and left you there?" The old man lowered himself slowly down from the horse, looked the rider straight in the eyes, and replied, "I've been around here for some time. I reckon I know people pretty good." The old-timer continued, "I looked into the eyes of the other riders and immediately saw there was no concern for my situation. It would have been useless even to ask them for a ride. But when I looked into your eyes, kindness and compassion were evident. I knew, then and there, that your gentle spirit would welcome the opportunity to give me assistance in my time of need." Those heartwarming comments touched the horseman deeply. "I'm most grateful for what you have said," he told the old man. "May I never get too busy in my own affairs that I fail to respond to the needs of others with kindness and compassion. Ya Allah, make me among those about whom the Holy Quran, Hashr 59:9, has said, and they give them preference over their own selves even though they are in need." My friend was walking down a deserted Mexican beach at sunset. As he walked along, he began to see another man in the distance. As he grew nearer, he noticed that the local native kept leaning down, picking something up and throwing it out into the water. Time and again he kept hurling things out into the ocean. As my friend approached even closer, he noticed that the man was picking up starfish that had washed up on the beach, and, one at a time, he was throwing them back into the water. My friend was puzzled. He approached the man and said, "Good evening, friend. I was wondering what you are doing." "I'm throwing these starfish back into the ocean. You see it's low tide right now and all of these starfish have been washed up onto the shore. If I don't throw them back into the sea, they'll die up here from lack of oxygen." "I understand," my friend replied, "but there must be thousands of starfish on this beach. You can't possibly get to all of them. There are simply too many. And don't you realize this is probably happening on hundreds of beaches all up and down this coast? Can't you see that you can't possibly make a difference?" The local native smiled, bent down and picked up yet another starfish, and as he threw it back into the sea, he replied, "Made a difference to that one.